All right. This is a new podcast that I've been wanting to try to do for a number of years called Perfect Sounds Forever. It's named after a Pavement EP that I'm actually going to talk about today. I had the idea to do this a number of years ago with my buddy Jack McGee, and we recorded a couple episodes, but I don't know, I had too much trouble trying to get them uploaded and stuff, and so I kind of got away from it, and I never went back to it, even though I always wanted to, and I just didn't have enough time. Um, but yeah, so hopefully I'm gonna get back into doing it. Jack will probably do some episodes with me, but he's a busy guy, so I'll probably have him do as many with me as I can, and then I'll do some alone, and I'll do some with some friends if they want to come talk about like an album that they like. So anyway, yeah, the premise of the podcast basically is I think it's kind of fun to talk about like the history of how albums get made, and we're talking about what we consider to be quote unquote perfect albums, which is obviously completely subjective, but it's kind of it's kind of fun just to talk about like why you think it's a perfect album, like the time that it hit in history, and like what the band was going for, and how well they nailed it, and what it means to you personally, and all that stuff. And then yeah, it's fun to talk about like music history too, and like the stuff that happened that led up to these albums being made. So anyway, so Jack and I have a list. We each wrote a list of albums that we think, and some of the ones we have the same ones, and then we each have some that the other doesn't have. So that was the idea, was that we would go and make the case for why the album's perfect or not. But yeah, I mean, again, it's total nonsense, but I think it'll be fun. And if you listen, I appreciate it. It'll be, you know, I appreciate anybody listening to me ramble incessantly about stuff that doesn't really matter. So yeah, I mean, you can put it on in the background or whatever. Hopefully, I'll be able to keep doing these. Um, because I love music. I love knowing stuff about, like I said, like the history of where these albums come from, and like how they got made, and the stuff that made them almost not get made, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think it'll be fun. So anyway, today I'm going to talk about Slanted and Enchanted by the band Pavement, which is my favorite band. And it seems like a good time to talk about that one right now because Pavement kind of has a lot of buzz going right now because the movie Pavements is coming out. I think it's already limited release right now, but it's going to be fully nationwide released soon. And I want to go see it in St. Louis. It's playing, so my Jack and I, we might go up there and see it, and we might do an episode on the movie or something. That'd be kind of fun. But I just brushed up on my Pavement trivia a little bit, so I watched Louder Than You Think, the documentary about Gary Young, who was the drummer on Slanted and Enchanted, and that's the only album that he drummed on for Pavement. It's such a funny story, like how, again, this is what I think is so cool about like music and stuff sometimes is that's why I want to talk about today, like the history, like Stephen Malcolm's life and the lives of like a couple other people, like Scott Canberg and these other peripheral people who are also important and have albums that I'll talk about some other time. Um, but yeah, all these people that just randomly met. I mean, just coincidentally, there's really no reason why they would have met. They weren't like seeking each other out or seeking to make music, but they all kind of met and had these same interests, and that all culminated in this whole scene of music. And obviously, indie music came from a lot of different places. There's a lot of different influences from all over, but it's just cool, like this particular area. And I love Pavement so much. Anyway, yeah. So I want to start with talking about Stephen Malcolm's life. So he was born in Santa Monica in 1960. Grew up there until he was 8. And then they moved to Stockton, which Stockton is like Northern California. I think it's like just south of Sacramento. So um, kind of is a pretty rough place to live, like even now, maybe even more so now, but back then it was too. So I think you had a lot of like, kind of rough parts of town, and then you had all these kids who were like teenagers and they need like an outlet because I think they're just bored. I don't think there's like anything to do. It's California, but there's no ocean. They're like in this valley, and I saw that when I watched the Louder Than You Think documentary. Um, Gary Young was showing like where they were located in the middle of this valley. There's just nothing going on around them. So I think that's what created the need to have this like punk scene and for them to like rebel against whatever they felt like they were rebelling against. So anyway, he grows up there in Stockton. At 16, he got himself in some trouble. It's kind of there's some funny stories. Um, he got like arrested for like getting drunk, peeing in bushes, and walking on the roofs of several residential homes, which is like hilarious. And also funny too, when I was watching the Gary Young documentary, Gary Young used to do handstands on rooftops. So it's just a funny coincidence. They both seem to have a habit of walking on top of houses for some reason. Um, Steve Malkmus also was, he ended up getting expelled from school not too long, I think, after that because he went to a party where people were doing shrooms. And he said he didn't do any, but he was quoted saying, some guy narked on me. So that's kind of funny. He doesn't seem like a troublemaker. He just seems like one of those dudes who just got in trouble, which I kind of can identify with. I feel like I wasn't always trying to be a shithead, but I would just get in trouble for stuff because I was just like, I don't know, everyone else was doing it, you know? Um, anyway, so around this time, he knew Scott Canberg. They both grew up there, and Scott Canberg, aka Spiral Stairs, who was the other guitarist in Pavement, and he wrote like some of their great songs. He wrote. Um, some people are divided on the Spiral Stairs songs, but I think a lot of them are good. Um, so anyway, so they end up I think playing in some bands like some hardcore punk bands. Um, Bag of Bones, Straw Dogs, Crisis Alert were three that I know of that they played in. I know that one or two of those bands opened. I'm pretty sure it was Straw Dogs. I think they opened for. I think it was like the Circle Jerks or the Dead Kennedys or somebody like that. Because they would come through, I think, from like San Francisco or whatever, and play Stockton a lot. And Stockton had this DIY punk scene. And I think that's where they first kind of met and saw Gary Young because he was a drummer in a band called Fall of Christianity. And, like I said, there wasn't a lot going on. So anybody who was into that kind of scene, that music scene, they would go see shows, locally or whatever. And I think that's where they first saw him play. And I don't think they really met him back then, but they just kind of were aware of him. And he was kind of like a local legend, I think, to some degree. And then he built his own studio later in like 1980. But anyway, we'll get to that. So, um, so yeah, they're playing in bands. Eventually, I think they both go to college. Spiral Stairs, he went to, I think, the University of Arizona. And then Malkmus went to UVA, the University of Virginia, because I think that's where his dad went. And this is like kind of where it starts. That already, that little piece I just told you, where like he knew Spiral Stairs. They grew up together. They went to the same schools. I think they played like baseball together or whatever. They already knew each other. They knew of Gary Young, so that's already like the seeds of Pavement kind of planted there, just from him living in Stockton. And then they go off to college. Malkmus just goes where his dad went. He went to UVA, whatever. He probably got back into high school and ended up graduating or whatever. But goes to UVA. There he meets Bob Nastanovich, who isn't really a musician, but he's a music guy. He loved music. He was another DJ at WTJU, which is now legendary college radio station at UVA. Um, he also met David Berman of the Silver Jews, who Stephen Malkmus was half of the Silver Jews at the beginning. And they met James McNew, who went on to be in Yola Tango, who I just saw a few weeks ago and was amazing. Even though it was kind of a weird venue, or weird show for them to do. I don't think they were stoked to be there, but it was still a really good show. And then they end up forming this like underground noise band called Ectoslavia, which is like has a bunch of like it's like a mythical band that nobody really knows about. I've never heard any recordings of it. I can't find any online or anything, but I'd love to hear some someday. But apparently it sounded a lot like the early Pavement EPs. So he's starting then at that point. You know, they were playing like punk, I think, like hardcore punk, like back in the day in Stockton when they were kids. There's actually some recordings of that online from I think from what I've seen. There's a little tidbit of it in the Gary Young documentary, which was kind of cool to see them playing music as like 16-year-old kids. So they started this band Ectoslavia. They're starting to experiment with like noise and kind of experimental stuff and like irregular time signatures in music and stuff like that. So that's now you've got this like coincidentally, I mean, he met two people that would form two other bands who are some of the most influential band. I mean, Yola Tango still plays. This is like how many years ago? 40, 50 years ago. Then Nastanovic, Malkmus, Berman, they all become like really close friends. I'm sure McNew was a close friend too, but I think they kind of like went wherever once they finished college. And Malkmus, Berman, and Nastanovic all get this apartment in Hoboken, New Jersey. And it's fun. I've heard Malkmus say, he's like, yeah, we thought we made it. We moved to Hoboken. He thought that was like the step up. That's where they wanted to be. So these are just like still like 20-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids. And Malkmus and Berman start making these songs and they called themselves the Silver Jews, which at the time, I mean, you know, at the time they weren't playing shows, but the earliest, technically, and this is one of the things I think created a little bit of like tension between Malkmus and Berman over the years, unfortunately. I think they resolved it a number of different times. Berman had a lot of mental health problems, unfortunately, and that's why he ended up passing away. Um, but he's still, I mean, he was one of the best songwriters, in my opinion, of all time. I mean, nobody can write a song like he can. And, but at this time, again, you know, he was still, you can hear his songwriting in these songs, but when him and Malkmus would get together, it was so cool. Like the shit that they would do is so good. And you can hear it on other albums. I mean, David Berman did his own albums that were, I mean, my favorite Silver Jews album is The Natural Bridge, and Stephen Malkmus isn't on that one. It actually was a huge deal. It almost didn't get made. I'll talk about that album another day. But there was a whole kind of like falling out that happened that almost caused it to not get made. And that's an amazing record. And like David Berman wrote all those songs himself. So, but just to give you an idea, I mean, you know, that's David Berman is by no means propped up by Stephen Malkmus, but when they got together, I think they made amazing music. And I mean, American Water is also one of the best records of all time, which Malkmus was on with him. So, you know, it just goes to show you that like they're both really, really talented musicians. But so this red cover is Die Map of the Reef, which is probably the first Silver Jews recording ever. So, and I have a first pressing 7-inch of just this one. This one's like a double that I bought. It's kind of cool because it has Die Map of the Reef and it has the Arizona record, which was the second recording they did. And these are both at the same time. Probably like 88 or something like that. So yeah, Die Map of the Reef is this front one, and then this cover is the Arizona record, which the same artist has done a bunch of indie bands album covers, and also notably he did a Pavement album, Wowie Zowie. He did the cover for that too. You can tell it's the same artist. He's got a pretty unique style. I forget his name, but anyway, let me see if I get this back in here. But yeah, so these two recordings are so good, and they're very lo-fi, but there's like song structures there. But you can literally hear it sounds like they're recording it in an apartment in Hoboken, New Jersey, and I'm pretty sure they did. So I'm not going to talk about this one too much, but I'll probably do a thing on these someday. But these songs are incredible songs. I mean, like, Canada is a great, just you can hear Malcolm is just kind of coming up with like a catchy pop chorus that's like so simple. He just says Canada over and over. And they have some goofy lyrics they barely get through, which Steve Malcolm is kind of notorious for not knowing the lyrics to his own songs. He'll just change them in the middle of the song, and people are like, "What the fuck? I thought I knew the words." It's like you did. He just changed it because he just feels like it. You know, that's just how he is. Um, these are all great songs. Secret Knowledge of Back Roads is one of my favorite songs ever. West S is an amazing song. Uh, Wild Palms is incredible. Where's the other one? Oh, I Love the Rights. I mean, these are all good songs. They're really, really good songs. The Unchained Melody, you can hear them just start like coming up with melodies. You know, I mean, they're it's still lo-fi. There's still like a little bit of noise and fuzz and static and stuff going on, but they're coming up with like song structures and melodies. And so this was, I think, Malcolm is kind of like starting to experiment with that stuff. And this existed before Pavement. That's something that like people don't realize. You know, and even myself, I'm like, I want to like fact check myself on the year this stuff was recorded, but I know it was before Pavement. And because that's, I mean, I think they recorded it when they were living together in New Jersey, which would have been before Malcolmus moved back to Stockton. So that's one thing there. So, and I'll probably have to talk about that some other day on its own because those songs are so good. But just to give you an idea, that's why I think it's important to talk about all this stuff because it all leads into the EPs that Pavement did. So he's done this stuff with Dave Berman. Malcolmus decides to move back home to Stockton. So he goes back. Then Scott Canberg, who he knew, they already played in bands together a little bit, is working at a local record store. They kind of start messing around. Scott would go take like a tape recorder and he would record like noises that he would hear, and then they were using those like samples, like a hip hop artist would do or something. But they were using those in these recordings of these songs, and they were sometimes like Malcolmus had. I didn't know this. I was literally trying to figure out what the sound was in some of these early EPs because it's like I can't really place what the sound is. It sounds like a tape being sped up or something and like slowed down and sped up, but it's his old Casio keyboard, I guess, that would when it would get low on batteries, it would make this weird noise. So they just recorded that. That's so funny to me. It's like, you know, these kids are like 20 years old and they're like experimenting with all this sound and stuff. So anyway, they start doing that stuff. Then they're like, you know, we might want to record this stuff. And also, keep in mind, Scott Canberg was also playing in bands in Arizona, and he was going to school, I think, for like architecture or something like that, and something to do with like construction and stuff. So he had named his band that he was doing down there Pavement. So technically, Pavement actually existed before Pavement existed. So it's kind of funny, and I didn't know that either until recently. And that's what's fun about diving into this stuff. You learn all this random trivia that you didn't really know. So technically, Canberg came up with the name for Pavement, and so he's talking to Malcolmus. They're recording this stuff, and he's like, "Hey, I already have a name for the band, Pavement." So he's working at a record store. I believe the guy he's working with, his name is Kelly Foley, who's an old friend of Gary Young, and he was in the Louder Than You Think documentary. I didn't know about him either. So he's the one who put Scott Canberg and Stephen Malcolmus in touch with Gary Young. So they knew of him, but they didn't like know him. So it wasn't like they just went over to Gary's house. It was like they had to be kind of, oh, hey, this guy I know, he's got a recording studio at his house, you know. And the recording studio was called Louder Than You Think, which is also the name of the documentary, which is also like the best name for a recording studio I've ever heard. And there's even a moment in it when Kelly Foley is telling the story. He's like, Gary came up to me and said, hey, man, I'm going to start a recording studio at my house. I'm going to call it Louder Than You Think. And he was like, that's a great name. I'm just like, dude, it is. It's so perfect. These guys are all so good at naming shit. That's one thing Malcolmus is good at, too. It's like, and Berman. I mean, they're all these guys are so good with words. And that's something that, I'm not lumping Gary Young in with, with like Dave Berman. Dave Berman was actually like an award-winning poet. So they go over, they meet Gary. This guy, Gary Young, he's a 40-year-old dude. They're 20. He's literally like an alcoholic. Unfortunately, it's just who he was. And that's one of the cool things about. I was watching that Gary Young documentary, and it's literally they're just like, you'll never meet another guy like Gary, like that generation. There's not going to be any more hippie dudes like that who are just like. They said he was a great guy. He just was, he just had just had a drinking problem. And I don't even know if he had that many personal issues. It seemed like he was kind of okay with his family and stuff for the most part. But I think he was one of those dudes who kind of couldn't get out of his own way. He ended up kind of causing himself his own downfall. Not really downfall. I think he was still happy. I think he still did stuff that he was happy with and he was proud of. So yeah, so Malkmus and Canberg have these kind of starts to songs. There's no drums. Gary hates it because he's a drummer, and there's no bass. And he said in the documentary too. He goes, "Well, no, just two guitars." He's like, "What value does that have? I mean, no drums." So he wants to drum on some of the songs. Anyway, Malkmus is starting to write, and Canberg, they're starting to write these songs, but I think Malkmus wrote a lot of them, and so now you start getting into. Now they're like putting stuff together. So Slay Tracks was the first EP that Pavement put out. It came out in 1989. It was called Slay Tracks 1933 to 1969. Nobody seems to know what it means, why it's called that. But again, Slay Tracks, I mean, could you pick a better name? I don't It's not like it's just like his combination of words. He was so good at that kind of stuff. And Malkmus studied history in college, so I think that's why a lot of his songs are named after times in the past, or he wrote songs about like World War II. Anyway, so this is the first one that comes out. And this is kind of what gets the ball rolling for Pavement. Because again, these guys, they're not trying to start a band and get a record deal. They're just kind of trying to like make stuff and see where it goes, It's two 20-year-old kids and a 40-year-old alcoholic. That's Pavement at this point. So the first song on Slay Tracks is You're Killing Me, which is, and I still remember how this starts. You hear it open, and it's like a bunch of kind of like fuzz and static and noise, and then you hear the guitar come through. There's some other lyrics too, but it's a simple song, And then the next song is Box Elder, which Box Elder now could come out and it would be a hit. It's still a great it's like a perfect like pop song. I mean, the guitar playing on it's just so simple. It's a perfect like sounds like I don't know, like the Beach Boys or something. It's like such a simple guitar riff, and it was so good that a band in England called The Wedding Present, they covered it. So they kind of like helped Pavement, I think, pop off in Europe because they put out a cover of Box Elder on one of their albums. Like I think helped get Pavement a little bit of notoriety because nobody knew who they were at that time. I mean, nobody knew like who Pavement was. Maybe is a great song. It's kind of just like a punky kind of again chanty sort of song. She Believes is one of the better Pavement songs out there. It's very simple, but you can hear them start forming that sound. That I think that's the sound that like I want to talk about today more than anything, that I will get to later. So Pavement's known for a lot of things, for being like quirky and goofy and sardonic and snarky and all this stuff. I've heard them described as arch. Like everyone thought they took themselves like not seriously because they were like the pioneers of like slacker rock, but they kind of were like making fun of everything. But Steve Malkmus even said later, I mean, several times, he's like, no, like we cared a lot. We were trying to make good music. But again, at this point, these are just kids and they're not really trying to do anything. They're just kind of making whatever they can make. And so this, when you hear She Believes, is like you start to hear that sound that I think Malcolmus was so good at, especially in this period. Because to me, Pavement existed in kind of like chapters. So, and a lot of bands sort of do. A lot of people think of it just as albums, but for me, it's like from their inception up to the end of like Slanted and Enchanted, like basically like when Gary Young leaves, I think they had that was a certain period for them. And they still, there's obviously like kind of, it carries over and it bled into other areas too. But you'll hear it like if you listen to the old live recordings of Pavement, you can hear this sound that they had, like the tone of his guitar and this like enveloping sound. It's like it wasn't like it's a lot of people call those sounds like full, like you can hear it fill the room, but this was more like it fucking coated the whole room and then like trapped you inside. It's like dark and brooding, but also hopeful in certain points of songs. And I'm not even talking about lyrics. I'm talking about just the actual overall like tone of the music. And so this She Believes is a good version of that, where you can hear them like probably do that for one of the first times. And the other stuff too, Box Elder is like a quirky, kind of goofy, fun song you can like sing along to. It's just about leaving town. It's just about getting out of town, or whatever. And that's what Malcolmus was so good at doing, is capturing the feeling, I think, of growing up in like the suburbs. And I think that's why it resonated with so many people, like especially kids in the 80s and stuff. It's like, I think they kind of just didn't have anything else to do, and I think Pavement really captured that a lot of times. But yeah, She Believes, I think, to me, is the first example. If you look chronologically, I think it's the first example of them having that sound. You can hear it maybe a little bit in the Silver Jews recordings, the early ones, but for sure, She Believes is definitely up there. Um, Price Yeah is another great song. Kind of, it basically is like a punk song. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I love it. It's got a great lead guitar riff over the chords. Again, all this stuff's very lo-fi, but you can still hear them like forming songs. I think that's what was cool too. Is nobody was really doing. And there was mixed things. I was watching the Gary Young documentary, and they were like, "Did you like? Was it lo-fi recording?" And he was like, "No." He's like, "Why would I record it bad on purpose?" And then Malcolm is like, "Yeah, it was lo-fi, but it's again, it depends on what you mean by lo-fi." Gary was trying to capture all the sounds well, but they're using noise samples of like static and shit. Of course, it's like, yeah, it's lo-fi. It's lo-fi on purpose, but it's not. Lo-fi maybe is like kind of a misnomer, because it's not necessarily that it's recorded badly. I'm sure Gary Young wasn't trying to record it badly, but they're trying to make it sound roughed up on purpose a little bit and give more character to the music, which some people would say like, oh, that's because you can't play instruments well or whatever. It's like, you can say that if you want. I mean, Stephen Malkmus went on to become literally one of the best guitarists of all time. I mean, and a lot of their music later on is like, I mean, he plays in these crazy tunings nobody else knows how to play in. So it's like, if you want to say that, and it's a lot of this stuff too is recorded in these weird tunings. I think Box Elder is one of the only songs I know of that's recorded in standard. But yeah, a lot of these songs are played in CGBGB. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, Dad Gad. That's one that is from Sonic Youth, I think, too. Sonic Youth played some songs in that, DADGAD. And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of different, like, it gets you a lot of cool sounds, and I think that's what helps with these like dissonant chords. And they did like bands like The Fall, Sonic Youth, The Clean. The Clean was more, you can hear their influence more in like Box Elder, and then you can hear like The Fall. I mean, for sure on Slanted and Enchanted, notably so, which I'll talk about later. Um, anyway, so yeah, Slay Tracks is a good EP. It's honestly not my favorite. I do like it a lot. I love all Pavement, but it's not my favorite EP that they ever did. Then I think then they start getting some attention from Slay Tracks. They put out this cassette or whatever, and or no, I'm sorry, they put out a little 7 inch. Canberg, they got it pressed into vinyls, and he started handing them out. Whatever he said, he thinks they made like 1,000 or something, and Malcolmus was even on vacation in like Austria, like a family vacation or something, and he's like in a record store and he hears them playing a Pavement song, and he's like, this is my band." It's crazy. I mean, then nobody knew who they were. They didn't even play shows. They weren't even playing live. They're just recording shit as kids and putting it out. So, and this is like just a little bit of foreshadowing of what will go on to happen for Pavement later. So then they get some interest. Now people are kind of like, there's buzz. The fanzines, like, nobody goes viral in the late 80s, early 90s except Pavement. Pavement goes viral, completely grassroots, weren't even really trying to. They were like, we'll make some shit, whatever. They put this stuff out. It gets this, like, and they didn't call themselves their names. I think that helped with the mystique. It was SM and Spiral Stairs. So they went by their little names that they had on the cover. And so now they're starting to get some buzz. People are like, "What the fuck is this? Should we, like, is this good? Is this good? Do we like this?" People are trying to figure out if they like it. But you can't deny, I mean, Box Elder is a song, even just that song alone, it's good enough. Even if they put out a single, you could have Box Elder with one other song. People be like, "What the fuck is this? This is great." But the rest of the stuff does add to, it's not just one singular sound that they were doing. I don't even think they were going for a certain sound. That's what's, again, this is to me what the purest version of indie music is. They're like, we were just doing whatever we wanted to do. Like, they're like, we don't care. We're not trying to sound like this or trying to sound like that. And which is one of the reasons why I hate mainstream music, because it's trying to just sound like something else or someone else. Obviously, you take inspiration. Obviously, they were inspired by other bands and stuff, but you're also trying to do something different. And that's where you start to be creative and actually come up with something interesting. So anyway, they get some interest. I think they were actually asked to put out another EP. I can't remember who it was with. It was either, I think it might have been Drag City, that asked them to do this one. So the next one they do is Demolition Plot J7. And this one, so, okay, this comes out in 1990. Forklift is the first song. Very lo-fi, a lot of like static and fuzz and shit, but it's still got a good little kind of rhythm to it. It's a good song. The next one is Spizzle Trunk, which is kind of one of their just like, I don't want to call it a throwaway, but it is like it's just kind of like noisy, and they're kind of just fucking around. It's kind of just like a noise jam. I don't even remember if there's any, I think there are lyrics, but they're really hard to understand. Recorder Grot is okay. It's not bad. It's like kind of, again, they're just experimenting and figuring stuff out. Then you have Internal K Dart. Internal K Dart is a good song. It's like you can hear them like coming up with these chord progressions that are interesting, and it's starting to sound a little more like there's something there, you know? And it's, again, it has this, to me, the same sound as like She Believes. It's like that again. It's got that kind of melodic, deep sort of stuff going on, but it's still poppy. It still has a good rhythm to it and all that stuff. Then after that, this song, again, you put out just this song alone. Perfect Depth is one of the best Pavement songs ever recorded, in my opinion. Perfect Depth is a great fucking song. It's kind of complex compared to the other stuff they were doing at this time. It has like a couple different chord progressions in it, and it's like it like flows into another thing. And that's one thing that I love about Pavement. A lot of songs and like people that make music, they're like, you have to have verse, chorus, verse, bridge, whatever, you know, it's like they have to be in these certain places. Pavement would do these songs that it would be this one chord progression up until this point, and it would switch, but it would flow into it so well, and you'd never hear anybody else do anything like that. You don't hear a lot of bands kind of make songs like that, and a lot of their songs were short, so you have like not a ton of time, so you go back and forth, that's fine. They have songs like that too, obviously, as a traditional song structure. But then you have Pavement doing stuff like Perfect Depth, where they're like it goes a certain way up until this point, and then it switches, and then he's got this. It's like the chorus just comes in at the end, and I love that. I love like, and the way that it ends is so good, and it just again it has that like the chords that he was playing and stuff, the tone that the music has is so fucking good, and I've never heard anything else like that. I still have not. There's bands who try to kind of do that sound, but that's what Pavement is singularly. Nothing else will ever happen like this. And that's the sound that I try to capture when I try to make music, and I never will, but it's just like I love it so much. Like I want to try to sound like that because that's the music that I love. And anyway, yeah. And then there's another version of Recorder Grout right after that, which is just again, kind of another kind of just mess around song. So after that, I think that Demolition Plot might have been the one that the guys at Matador said they would have like in their cassette deck like every day. That was the one that they were like playing because this one actually kind of got distributed. Like I said, I think it was Drag City. Um, After that, they come out with Perfect Sound Forever, which is one of my favorite Pavement EPs. So this is actually an original Perfect Sound Forever. So this one has some of my favorite Pavement songs ever, some of the best songs ever. Um, Heckler Spray is the opening song on this, so it's a lot of like noise and like harmonics, but it's really catchy too. It's actually got like melody to it, even though it's a great use of like harmonics. And again, they're influenced by Sonic Youth. Sonic Youth would use harmonics a lot of times too, but their music was maybe a little more moody. But they're just kind of like messing around with with like picking really fast and doing harmonics over chord progression. And the next song is From Now On, which is one of the best Pavement songs ever. From Now On is, and one of the first times I heard this song, I don't think I heard it on this EP. I heard it, there's a recording of it, because I would always try to find Pavement songs that weren't recorded. They have so many good live recordings of songs that they never recorded in a studio. There are no physical copies of them. From Now On is one of them, or I'm sorry, it's on this, but at the time I hadn't found it. So From Now On is one of those songs that's like kind of a sleeper hit to me, but it has a much like kind of darker sound to it, especially the live. The live version, it's like recorded in like Cologne, Germany or something like that.
Now on, this is a joke. When you see the skin right on me.
But it's so good, man, and it really sounds like Nirvana or something. But when I say it sounds like Nirvana, I just mean it has that tone to it. It doesn't. He's not trying to sound like grunge. But Nirvana is another band too that I don't think gets enough credit for having a unique sound. There was a lot of grunge bands that did kind of sound the same. I'm not a huge grunge fan anymore. It has a nostalgia element because I grew up in the '90s, but um, wasn't my. It isn't totally my cup of tea. I like to kind of go back every once in a while and be like, yeah, I remember this. It's nice. But Nirvana doesn't get enough credit for having a little more of a unique sound compared to the other bands, and great taste. Kurt Cobain ended up taking Pavement to Reading Festival with him in England and really helped them. And so did Sonic Youth. Sonic Youth took them on tour also. Um, and From Now On, I think is probably one of the reasons why, because that like sound that they were able to get on that song is, I mean, it's so fucking good. And again, these are all super lo-fi. Even at this point, they're still doing really like rough sounding kind of mess around songs, but this is like there's these noises around the music, but the music's still there. They were just doing that for like to add to make put their stamp on it. But even without it, I mean, these songs sound incredible. So after that, you have Angel Carver Blues, Mellow Jazz Dawson, which is like I thought was on Slanted and Enchanted actually, um, but it's not. The later like double or whatever triple side whatever album they put out Slanted and Enchanted has all the B-sides and stuff from around this time. But it's basically just, and again, I'll talk about all this stuff. So, but it sounds like it could have been on Slanted and Enchanted, and it was a big hit live, I think, that they would play. Um, it's a great song, a really, really good song, and this is when they start getting into more kind of complex, like you know, song structures and stuff like that. Drive By Fader, I think that's what he was getting out of his like keyboard. Um, Debris Slide after that. Debris Slide is a great song. It's very like sing alongable. I think it was a big live hit for them, especially in the early days. People would request it all the time. It's a very catchy chorus. I mean, it's just literally he says ba 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 da ba debris slide. And I think this is a big one that Nastanovich would sing on. He would yell debris slide when they would play it. Um, After that, home, and from now on, and Angel Carver Blues. Those three are, I mean, easily like should have been on the record. But again, they came up with so many good songs. They were just like, we don't even need to reuse these. We'll just keep doing it. But the Home is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's a great song to like learn to play. It's fun to play. Like, and again, it has that sound, that tone of the music that I'm talking about. It's like, it's so good. It's so like melodic and deep and dark and like kind of brooding, but also hopeful at the same time. I don't know. He was so good at making music like that, and I think the tunings help with that kind of dissonant sound and stuff. But anyway, yeah. And then Krellvid User is kind of another just kind of noisy, sampley song at the end to finish it off. But yeah, this was put out on Drag City, and I think the other ones were too. Yeah, recorded. This was put out in '91, but it was recorded in 1989. So again, all this stuff I think was recorded in '89. 2 years, 3, 4 years before. Because really, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, even if they recorded it at Gary's in '89, they could have been doing it in '88. I mean, so it could have been easily 4 years ahead of the album, Slanted and Enchanted. But again, so they're getting all this buzz. Now they're starting, I think, to play live shows. They're starting to get some more buzz. And this is when Matador asked them to make an album. So Matador is basically like no one at this point. They're a very small indie wannabe record label, but they ask Pavement to do an album for them. So they start putting together Slanted and Enchanted. They recorded at Gary's studio. It's Malcolmus, Scott, and Gary Young. Those are the three people on the album formally. So yeah, so they get this buzz. They play some shows on the East Coast, and I think this is all before the album comes out, if I'm not mistaken. They're like see like Gary's family in like upstate New York or whatever. They play a show up there. Gary is kind of a problem sometimes, so he drinks a lot. Like I said, he becomes kind of a problem. I think that's when they bring Bob Nastanovich, Malcolm's old friend from college, on to be kind of like the tour manager, like to help them. Because again, loves music, loves the same music. He's good friends with Malcolmus from school. He comes in to kind of, and then he asks him to drum also. He's like, I don't know how to drum or anything. He's like, well, we just need you to help keep time because Gary sometimes loses track of the song because he drinks too much. So that's why Nastanovich really joined the band. He was actually just going to be kind of their tour manager. And again, they're just friends, so they were just like wanting to include him, I think. And he just seems like a great guy. He's just a good guy. And now he owns Broker's Tip Records. He owns his own little record label thing. And I think they try to put out some indie bands and stuff or whatever. Or maybe it's just a record store. I think they put out music, though. But yeah, so they bring Nastanovich. I think maybe around this time also they bring on Mark Eibold, who was a big Pavement fan, and he was like, once he heard they were looking for like a bass player, I think he like asked to join the band, and they kind of knew him. So now they're actually playing some shows. They're doing some like opening for Sonic Youth. They're working on their first album. They get the album recorded. And again, I think a lot of these songs were recorded without Nastanovich and Mark Eibold on them also. So anyway, they get these songs together on a cassette. And so there's like one copy of this cassette allegedly. Canberg hands it out to whoever, then it gets handed out to somebody else, copied, handed out to somebody else. And this is what happened with Pavement that I think is like such a cool thing that like people don't really realize. This didn't happen. So they haven't even fully finished like recording the album. They're just putting out like a demo of it, which I think ended up being basically the final version, but it's not been pressed into vinyl yet. They're still kind of like, are we gonna? Is this how we're finalizing it? They were just putting it out for people to listen to. It makes the rounds so much. Spin Magazine gets a hold of it. Spin Magazine, they get word that Spin Magazine is gonna review the demo of their album. This has never happened before apparently, and that's how much weight Pavement had behind them. Is they were getting reviewed before their album even came out. That's how much people loved Pavement and wanted to see it. And it ends up being a 5-star review, of course, for a fucking cassette demo that like hasn't even been. They had apparently Matador had so many orders for Slanted and Enchanted that they couldn't like walk in their office. They couldn't even reach their phones and stuff, which is so cool to me. I mean, the fact that like literally that's the dream. I mean, for a real indie band. And again, at this time, I mean, people called it indie or whatever, but they weren't like, oh, we're an indie band. They were just like, we're a band, we make rock music. And that's such an amazing thing that like nobody would ever anticipate would happen to them. Especially these guys. I mean, these guys are, like I said, it's all just such a weird culmination of timing and these people being in the right place at the right time and also happening to be very good musicians and having an ear for like interesting music. And all these guys shared these same interests and these same bands that they liked and stuff. And anyway, so it's very cool, that like that happened. So Slanted and Enchanted, it's finally made. It's finally put on vinyl. Now the song list for Slanted and Enchanted. The first song, Summer Babe, winter version, because I think they recorded it in the wintertime, so that was their little joke they put in there. I mean, is a perfect pop song. A perfect, like, just a great song to sing along to, but also, again, still you can hear Malkmus's songwriting on display. Like, the lyrics that he writes are interesting. It's not literally a song about having a summer girlfriend, and it's like, but I mean, the lyrics are so good and they cut through everything else. Like it's not bullshit. Oh, whatever, it's like actually interesting lyrics. I mean, what's the opening line? I saw your girlfriend. She was eating her fingers like they're just another meal. Like, that's such a weird line, but it's, like, again, interesting, It's like, and so just a great opening song for a record, After that, Trigger Cut, Wounded Kite at 17. I think that's at 17 part is because that's when the song, like, kind of kicks in. There's a little bit of an intro in it. Another one, again, the opening line, Lies and Betrayals, Fruit-Covered Nails, Electricity and Lust.
Lies and betrayals, fruit-covered nails, electricity and lust.
That's such a fucking perfect, it's such a great line for an opening song. I mean, I don't even know what it means, but it's like such, and that's what Malkmus's songwriting, I think, was a little bit different from somebody who, like David Berman, who was more of a kind of a storyteller. Malkmus was more like, he would even say the lyrics he would write aren't as much about meaning something as they are to like sound good against the music. And I think there's value to both of those approaches. And Malkmus was the best at that one. Berman's the best at the other one, in my opinion. This is a little Trigger Cut plus 2. This is Trigger Cut, Wounded Kite, and then also has Sumi Jack, which is a great like just rock Pavement song. Um, and So Stark, You're a Skyscraper, which is another great example of that deep, dark kind of pavementy, moody sound that they had in the early '90s and the late '80s. And like that's again, I discovered this music way after it came out. I mean, I discovered Slanted and Enchanted 2014 or something like that, 2013, because yeah, probably around then. Because I lived in St. Louis, and then yeah, I think I found like Dinosaur Jr., and then I started getting into other like bands from that time. And Pavement was one that I was like, I don't really get this, and then I started to get it later, and then I started to dive into. Slowly became my favorite band, and then have been my favorite band ever since. Because the more I found out about them, I just liked everything. I mean, more and more. And I also liked that not that many people know about them, which is stupid, but it is one of those things that like people do know about them now, and I am happy like that more people know about Pavement. But you know, that's the just the hipster in me. I like knowing about stuff that people don't know about. But I do also love all their like B sides and stuff that people really don't know about that I would like more people to hear. And that's one of the reasons I want to talk about this stuff. And again, you have to talk about all the EPs to be able to talk about Slanted and Enchanted, just because it's their first full length record, but it's also a culmination of all this stuff that happened, and like them forming this sound comes from, you know, maybe he wouldn't have come up with Summer Babe if he hadn't met David Berman. I don't know. You know, it's like I just don't know, because maybe he would have been more into like the brooding dark stuff or whatever. But Summer Babe's an upbeat, happy punk song with a ton of like distortion, and I mean a happy pop song, not a punk song. Um, yeah. So anyway, Trigger Cut. After Trigger Cut is No Life Singed Her, which is one of the ones that starts to get Slanted and Enchanted. And again, Pavement in general, like I said, they have some songs where they're kind of like, this is a great first listen for somebody who's never listened to Pavement. This one's not. And Slanted and Enchanted is almost like that. It's almost every other song is like great song for you to listen to if you haven't heard them. Maybe not so much. Great song for you to listen to. Maybe not so much. So No Life Singed Her is a bit of a tough listen if you're not into Pavement and you're not really like sure about about all that stuff. It's a little more of a challenging listen, like a non-traditional song structure, a little bit more like yelling and stuff in it. After that one is In the Mouth of Desert, which is one of the best Pavement songs of all time. Possibly my second favorite. I don't know. Could be. Um, and it's funny too because I found this music later, so the versions of these albums like on Spotify and stuff aren't really accurate. I mean, it is like just the A side of Slanted and Enchanted is these songs. But I thought like Frontwards was on that. I thought Home was on it. But all these songs aren't on technically on Slanted and Enchanted. Even the other B sides that I'll talk about here in a minute aren't. Theoretically, they're not on the album. They didn't come out on Slanted and Enchanted. They were just all B sides they put out. So, In the Mouth of Desert is a perfect Pavement song. Perfect example of that sound I'm talking about when it's so fucking simple to play on guitar. It's so simple. It is pop music. It's like, but it's not pop. I mean, it's like In the Mouth of Desert it is so catchy in a way that like you can't really explain, but it's not, obviously you wouldn't call it a pop song, but it's a like 3 chord song, one finger chords on in this tuning. It's in CGB, GBE, which is like my favorite tuning to play in. But and then the chorus is great. I mean, I don't know. It's just, and then the lead he plays over it, which is very simple. It's like a 2 note, 2 note thing he does, and but it's just the way he does it, you know. And that's where like it's a perfect example of like minimalism guitar playing, but also being like a master at guitar at the same time.
And you treat it like an oil well when it's underground, out of sight.
So, yeah, I mean that's a great song. After that, again, Conduit for Sale is a great song. It was a big live one for them, I think. Probably not a great first choice of a song to listen to if you're not into Pavement. Um, and the live versions, I think they would have Nastanovich yelling on that one a lot. And it's also Malcolmus just like rambling these lyrics really fast that you can't really understand. Anyway, maybe not the first choice if you're going to start listening to Pavement. But it's still a good song, still a fun song. If you listen to the live versions of it, I think that it would get people pumped up. And again, nobody else was making music like this. So it's like, you can't really say it's bad. I mean, it's just different. It's not something maybe that's your cup of tea, but it does grow on you. If you become a Pavement nerd, it will grow on you. Um, After that, you have one of the lightest, easy listens that Pavement has. Zurich is Stained, which is also written about World War II. Again, Malcolm is kind of using his like history major that he spent all that time on. Just a great song. Such a beautiful song. Anyway, so Zurich is Stained. Then you go into Chesley's Little Wrists, which is, I think it was a song about a friend of theirs that actually passed away at that time. Um, but it's not an easy listen either. It's a little bit of a rougher song. It's not bad, but it's not like my favorite. It's not like if I'm trying to chill out, I'm going to listen to Chesley's Little Wrists. Um, After that, you have Loretta Scars, which is kind of a sleeper hit. That's one of my favorite Pavement songs. Again, it's just a perfect example of Malcolmus's guitar playing and songwriting. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a great song. Also, I learned how to play that one a long time ago on guitar. It's very fun to play. And that's how I would figure out chords in these weird tunings he played in, is by like learning his songs and being like, oh, okay, now I see the chord shapes. Okay, that's how he came up with that. After Loretta Scars, I think you have probably the best entry level Pavement song is Here.
I was dressed for success, but success it never comes.
Here is a beautifully written, slow kind of song. Um, just a great song. I mean, it's got a great chorus, very chill, very easy to listen to. Still a Pavement song. It's still a Pavement song. You can still hear Malcolm's songwriting in it, but it easily, could have been written by like another band that has kind of. It could be like written by like Mazzy Star or something like that. You know, um, the lyrics are great. Anyway, Two States right after that is basically just kind of a pop banger. It's I think it was a big one for them live. They would play. Um, Great song. I mean, again, maybe not my favorite, maybe not everyone's favorite, but like if you're a younger kid with a little bit of angst in you, I bet you love that song. Um, After that, Perfume V. I still remember there's a great video of them playing this song at the Reading Festival when they were opening for Nirvana. Um, with the wind just blowing like crazy. They're in England. They're like 21 and they're playing this huge festival. It just looks so cool. I mean,
She's got the radioactive and it makes me feel okay. I don't feel okay. She's got the radioactive and it makes me feel okay. I don't feel okay.
it's a perfect example of slacker rock. Um, that's one of my favorite Pavement songs too. It's hard. It's hard to pick a favorite song because there's so many good ones. After that, Fame Thrower is another one. It's in the same. For me, my brain compartmentalizes them where it's like Fame Thrower, Conduit for Sale, Debris Slide, Two States. Like these are all like kind of the kind of high energy, loud, kind of caustic songs that they would do live. Um, Again, maybe not the best place for you to start if you're just trying to get into Pavement, but it's still a good song, still fun. Like, and again, them showing like their versatility, I think. After that, this is one that also doesn't even seem like it's on the album. It seems like it should be a B side. But Jackal's False Grails, The Lonesome Era, is a very good song. It's a very good like rock song. Seems to me like the more it's you get this idea in your head when you listen to all these Pavement songs of like what is actually on Slanted and Enchanted, and that doesn't seem like one of the songs. But this one's like one of the only ones I think where they really use kind of the same sample-y stuff that they were using on their EPs. It's got a little bit more of the like kind of electric feel to it, like keyboards and stuff. but it's a great song. I mean, it's a great rock song. It kind of gives you the feeling of the album starting to end. And then the next song, Our Singer, is a very slow one and a ripoff of The Fall. Mark E. Smith, the lead singer of The Fall, which is a very influential band in England in the 80s and I think 70s too. Um, he was kind of a controversial figure. He was a pretty rough dude. I think he lived a rock star lifestyle, but he really dressed like a professor. But The Fall have, I mean, some of the greatest songs. Bill Is Dead is a great. If even if you don't like anything else they made, I bet you'd like Bill Is Dead.
I had crow's feet under my eyes. Paid 2 days for getting high.
It's a very chill song, and they were so good at like very simple chord progressions, and it's really more about just Mark Smith's songwriting and his lyrics and the way he would sing. It was like talk singing, and I think that's where Malcolm's kind of got a lot of inspiration. But also, Mark E. Smith was a very influential guy. I think that one of the other most notable people who I think kind of took inspiration or arguably ripped him off would be James Murphy from LCD Sound System. The way that Mark Smith would kind of inflect at the end of words, he would say, words.
Hey there, fuckface! Hey there, fuckface!
The way, it's like kind of, he would say sa at the end of words and stuff. And if you listen to like Daft Punk is Playing at My House by LCD Sound System, James Murphy says, my house. They're like the same way that Mark E. Smith used to.
Show you the ropes, kid, show you the ropes. About 15 cases for my house, my house.
So I don't know. I don't know if that's a true thing, but it's just something I always noticed, and I thought it was kind of similar. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I bet James Murphy likes The Fall. But yeah, so Mark E. Smith at some point came out and said, oh, Pavement's just basically a Fall cover band or something. He said something like that. And I think Malcolm was a little bit butthurt about it, but he was like, well, whatever. It's like, yeah, we love them, like we, took a lot of inspiration from them, but I don't think Malcolm is one of the dudes that's kind of hard to pin down what he cares about and doesn't care about. Not the most emotive dude in the world. But yeah, so, and after that, this is what's funny. And this is another thing too, that like, again, these songs that didn't even get recorded formally. So there's a live version of this on YouTube. It's called Mark E. Smith by Pavement. It's very funny. It's like a jokey, it's like a diss track, like, but not really. Like it's kind of Pavement making fun of itself for sounding like The Fall, but also kind of making fun of Mark E. Smith. So, it's funny opening lines. Mark Smith used to work for me back in Manchester back in 1983. Of course, I can remember that one.
Mark Smith used to work for me back in Manchester back in 1983. Stole all his ideas from me. Now steal them right back again from him.
But yeah, it's just funny. It's kind of a jokey, like, whatever, man, kind of song, they wrote about Mark Smith. And they would do that a lot. I mean, there's a song, some of the greatest Pavement songs aren't formally recorded. There's a song called Black Walls. There's a song called Baby Yeah that they did live at Brixton Academy. Black Walls you can find recordings of online that are incredible. You shouldn't hate your body, it's part of you. You shouldn't hate your friends, they're part of you. You shouldn't hate your family, they're part of you. Or your neighbors, I'm sorry, not friends. Your neighbors, they're part of you.
You shouldn't hate your body, it's part of you. You shouldn't hate your family, it's part of you. You shouldn't hate your neighbors, 'cause they're part of you. Black walls, black walls, black walls. black walls.
And that could be the best example of that sound that I'm talking about. When you hear how he plays his guitar, the tone that he gets out of it, which I have never heard anybody have, and that sound that I'm telling you, it like envelops the room. You know, it's like so good, and it really like makes you feel like trapped in it. And you listen to those and you watch the live videos and like how everyone's just kind of quiet when he's playing that song. And then that's usually the one he would do, and then it would lead into In the Mouth of Desert, which also has kind of the same feeling, and I think they're in the same tuning. So that's, and I could never figure out how to play Black Walls. I would watch videos all the time and try to figure out how to play, but I couldn't ever really nail it. But it's one of the greatest Pavement songs ever made, and didn't ever get recorded. You know, Baby Yeah is kind of a almost like a just a joke of a pop song, but it's great. You listen to and it's actually on the B side of Slanted and Enchanted on like Spotify and stuff. If you listen to Spotify, it's in the live section that the live show they played at Brixton Academy, and then also some of the best Pavement songs that are from that era were just put out as B-sides. I mean, Greenlander is, I remember reading, somebody wrote an article about it or something, or like a blog about Greenlander, and they were like, I remember I was sitting in like my brother's room or something, and he had this Pavement, whatever, I don't even know who this band is, and they listened to it, like, it changed my life. And I was like, Greenlander is like that. It's like an incredible song.
On an icy island north, in the woods beside the church, we can bury creels and lockets filled with dirt. And when the April thaw brings us out again.
They also played some like songs in their John Peel session that they did back in the '90s. It was like Rain Ammunition, Drunks with Guns. Like those are songs that I think were just kind of, they didn't really feel the vibe. And to be honest, I didn't love them either. But it is still like part of, you know, Pavement's history that they played the John Peel sessions, and those never got recorded either that I know of, other than just the live recordings that they put out later. But then also those B-sides, those later EPs that they had, I mean, the number of good songs, it's crazy. I mean, circa 1870, or sorry, circa 1762, I think is what it is. Incredible song. Texas Never Whispers, incredible song. Lions, Linden, and then Linden was like the local school, I think. That was the local like high school, so it was them showing their like pride for the school or whatever for the football team. And if you listen to the song, it does kind of sound like, but again, I mean, you listen to that and you're like, that's Malcolm is just talking about living in like the suburbs, like growing up in the suburbs in Stockton in the middle of nowhere, you know? And I mean, using the imagery, there's so many good lyrics in all those songs.
Every building same height, every street a straight line, team colors yellow and blue, chilling single file, perfect smiles unaffected, and you won't forget our colors blue.
That are about just like kind of what it's like to live somewhere like that, you know, in like kind of a desolate place. But they would still kind of give you hope and still kind of make you feel like there's more outside of it or whatever, or find the beauty in it wherever you can. But yeah, I don't know. I really love that. And it gave me a lot of like an idea of that time and place. And that's why I think is what I want this podcast to kind of be about, is like that aspect, like what stuff means to you and how it makes you, your perception of it. Because that's really what art is. A lot of musicians want you to kind of take your own interpretation of their music. And for me, I'm kind of a visual person, so it makes me think of like living in Stockton at a time, you know, or I don't know. It's just I don't know. It just kind of gives you that vibe. Um, then you also have Frontwards. Frontwards is my favorite Pavement song of all time. And it's crazy to me that it's not on Slanted and Enchanted. When they did their Quarantine the Past, like 10-year anniversary, what's it called? Like the little compilation or whatever, like the best of hits, basically, which is hard. I mean, Pavement doesn't really have like best of hits, but, it's just a compilation album of Pavement songs. It's on that. But that was, I think, the biggest, like, record they ever really put it on. But Frontwards is, I mean, it's one of the best songs I've ever heard. I mean, I love it so much. And it's, again, simple kind of one finger chords, but it's a little more complex chord structure. But just, I am the only one searching for you. And if I get caught, then the search is through.
I am the only one searching for you. And if I get caught, then the search is through.
Like, such good lyrics. That one gives me such a feeling of, like, I think what they felt like when they lived in Stockton at that time. Uh, it's such a good example of how he was able to distill down, like, just the feelings of, like, kind of being stuck somewhere. And there's a live recording of it where he says this song's about moving forward. Obviously, I think it's at the Brixton Academy, in like '92 that they played there. But that is such a pivotal song in my life too. And, like, to be like, man, I don't know anybody that knows this song. I don't know anyone that had heard that song up till that point. The only reason people know it now is probably because I told them about it, if I had to guess. Um, and I'm not even sure they like it as much as me. I don't know if it matters, but yeah, I mean, I just, it's, again, I almost am talking about Slanted and Enchanted just so I can talk about Frontwards. But Frontwards is, first of all, that's not even really a word. I mean, I think it is, but it's like nobody says frontwards. But that's such a it's the epitome of Pavement to me. It's amazing songwriting, like lyrics that give you this, like, sense of time and place and imagery of, like, what's around him, the migrant hotels he talks about. I mean, the stolen rims, are they alloy or chrome? I've got style, miles and miles. Uh, so much style that it's leaving. I mean, just, like, such a perfect example of his kind of, like, jokey lyrics, but also it's serious at the same time. It's, like, sardonic, but, like, also means something, and gives you this feeling like you're there. Like you were there in, like, the late '80s or whatever when he was growing up there, or like the early to mid '80s, I guess. Even late '70s, I think. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just such a cool song, and that is to me the epitome of that sound that Pavement had at that time. It's all of it in one song. And there are a few that I think you could make that argument for, but Frontwards to me is the best example of it because it has the lyrics, it's got the song structure, it's got the noise elements, not like a lot, but it's got the distortion. It's got the kind of jokiness, making fun of itself, but also making fun of just life and where they are and all that stuff. It's an amazing song. And that one, I think there's good versions of them playing it live too, but the recorded version is amazing. And it's one of the ones that, like, they really, really nailed the sound on, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, you watch, like, these documentaries and you watch Lance Bangs talk about making those documentaries. And one of the cool things, Also, yeah, Lance Bangs is, I mean, a legendary documentary filmmaker. He recorded like tons and tons of footage of like bands and stuff from forever. I don't know, from like the 80s and 90s, more the 90s, I guess he's known for. But he's like done a ton of stuff at this point. I mean, he's also one of the main producers on Pavements, the movie that's coming out about Pavement, because they used a lot of stuff from his documentary Slow Century in the movie because he's got like the best footage. And he's the one that got the footage of Thurston Moore saying like, uh, yeah, he's like, I heard this like song. He's like, oh, who's this or whatever. He's like, oh, it's this new band Pavement. Uh, some of the stuff's kind of almost unlistenable, and he's like, so I was immediately sold because that's Thurston Moore. He loves rough sounding noise and stuff like that. And Lance Bangs also got the live show they were playing in, I believe it was Athens, Georgia, the 40 Watt Club. And there's a few shows of Pavement playing that club and other great bands. I think I've seen like Archers of Loaf play that. There's like live recordings of a ton of great bands playing that club. Because it was a big deal. It was a big club for like bands in that scene to play. And that was where that DIY indie kind of scene was at. And they played that club a lot. And like Maxwell's also in New Jersey. But there's a show. This is after Slanted and Enchanted. This is after they've opened for Nirvana. They've opened for Sonic Youth. This is, I think, in 1994 in April. I know it is. It was, I didn't realize this because the first time I watched the documentary was a number of years ago. And I didn't know what the day was or anything. But they're playing, it's April, I can't remember what day, in 1994. Um, and there's only part of this show that Lance Bangs put in the documentary, but he's gotten the entire show on on YouTube on his channel. I've seen the whole entire show before too. But so they're working on Crooked Rain, Crooked Rain. I think at this time Gary Young's already out of the band. I think they had Steve West with them at this point. So this is a little bit after Slanted and Enchanted, but I just think this is a cool thing. You know, you see them getting set up to play. They're kind of hooking everything up. All the people are in the room asking them questions. Lance is right there in front. And again, I didn't recognize the date, but apparently it was the day Kurt Cobain died. And it's, I mean, they knew him a little bit at least. I mean, he had good enough music taste to bring Pavement to Reading to play the Reading Festival in like 92 or whatever. And Malcolmus opens with Fight This Generation, which they hadn't recorded yet, or at least it hadn't been put out yet. And it's such a good version of that song. And this is what I'm talking about when it bleeds into. Technically, so that song, Fight This Generation, came out on Crooked Rain, which came out in 1994, later that year. But, and I agree with Lance Bangs on this. He was talking about how, he's like, I had the footage of them playing that song, and he's like, it was the day they found out Kurt Cobain died, and he's like, the way that it sounded was incredible. And I mean, they opened the show with that song, and it is a great song. But he's like, he said the version that's on the album he didn't like as much as the live version. He's like, I think they missed an opportunity because they went a little more kind of, you know, not the same deep sound. And you know, to be fair, I mean, I'm sure they had their reasons for trying to get away from that sound that they kind of had in the beginning, because this is where it bleeds together. You listen to that, and I mean, it has that moody sound that they had. And I think it's that they, in particular, because I mean, they found out probably somebody who was like, I mean, he did a lot for them. I mean, putting them in that festival, helping them get that much attention at the height of his career too, is pretty cool thing to do for a small band. So you listen to them play that song, and dude, and he hadn't even had the lyrics fully worked out yet. You can hear there's at the end he just starts chanting I'm an animal over and over, and he's just banging the shit out of his guitar while he's playing his chords. And it's a great, that's a piece of history that like will never be replicated again because just the feelings that go into that. And that is something that Pavement probably doesn't get enough credit for, is actually having deep music. To me, it's deep. Again, the lyrics you can take for whatever at face value if you want, but they can mean whatever you want them to. But that's that sound that they had at that time. And Gary Young's drumming was a big part of that. Despite the Generation clip, I don't think Gary Young was drumming, but you can still, a lot of the sound they had was the simple minimalism of his drumming, and then he would do a lot of the rolls or whatever they said, But I love that. I mean, I've never heard drumming on an album that I noticed that I liked, except Slanted and Enchanted and the live versions of those songs that he would play. There's an incredible footage of him standing up on his seat, and like he would like be walking around the stage and hit the cymbal and like whatever and walk around and then like show up right when the beat drops for In the Mouth of Desert, and like going from the intro into the first verse, and he would be, and it's like doo 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 doo. You know? And he would nail it perfectly. Obviously, they said that didn't happen a lot, or at least not every time by any means, because he would fall off his stool a lot because he would drink too much or whatever. But he was a big part of that. But also, and that might all that stuff could be part of. These are 20-year-old kids trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And Gary left the band at this point. But I think that clip of him playing that show, opening with Fight This Generation, which would go on their next album, that was still them at the end of the arc of this version of Pavement. And I think it marked the end of a lot of things. It marked the end of maybe sort of that sound that they had. And also, I mean, a friendship that they had with Kurt Cobain, maybe, I don't know how close they were, but close enough. You meet people in your professional life, you consider them like friends. I'm sure they knew him to some degree, but it's a really emotional thing, and I don't think people probably even realized it in the room at that time. They were just like, "Whoa," because I mean, I doubt any of those people had heard that song yet. It wasn't out on a record yet, so that's such a cool. I mean, imagine being in that room at that time, and imagine being Lance Bangs and being like, "Holy shit, I just got that on film." And he wasn't a guy who like capitalized on and made any money, but yeah, I think that clip is a great example of that sound that Pavement had too. And even though Gary wasn't there anymore, I'm sure that bummed them out a little, but probably caused for some relief. And also, I'm sure they were bummed about Kurt Cobain dying, and you can hear all that emotion in that recording of that song. And that's what I think a lot of the other songs did capture. I think Steve Malkmus is a deeper guy than he gets credit for a lot. And you can hear it in songs like Here and Greenlander and Frontwards and In the Mouth of Desert and Black Walls. I don't know what Black Walls means, but you know what? It's almost even goes with it's a great metaphor for their sound. Like I said, I mean, the black walls that kind of trap you in, you know. Um, but yeah, that's why I think Slanted and Enchanted is a perfect record, because even though I don't love every single song on that album, they all serve a purpose, I think, and it does represent a time in history for them, for anyone, you know, and like I wish I could have been there for. I was born in 1993, so you know, there's no getting around that. But and this is a quote from Stephen Malkmus that I think is cool, you know. He said, I think Slanted and Enchanted probably is the best record we made, only because it's less self-conscious and has an unrepeatable energy about it. And yeah, I mean, you know, leave it to him to sum it up so well, you know. But I think as Pavement, Slanted and Enchanted, there's a very good case to be made for. And for me, again, you know, maybe this is my mistake, but I include all the EPs and stuff that led up to Slanted and Enchanted as part of it, even though they're not formally, but even Frontwards and stuff, I think technically was put out after the record actually came out. But, and then they also put out Watery Domestic that was the one that had Frontwards, Texas Never Whispers, those ones on it. And then this is Westing by Musket and Sextant. I don't know what that means, but this is a combination of all the EPs that they put out before Slanted and Enchanted. So, Slay Tracks, Demolition Plot J7, Perfect Sound Forever are all on here, and Summer Babe, which is kind of cool. So they put out another one, yeah, Summer Babe, Mercy, The Laundromat, Baptist Black Tick. Baptist Black Tick was another great live song for them. My First Mine and My Radio. My Radio is, I always forget about that one. That's the thing too, man. Pavement has so many little songs that you'll forget, and then you'll be like, holy shit, I forgot that's a song. And then you realize, like, wow, that was part of it. That was all part of it. They all matter, and it all matters for their sound and for the history of the band. And you can still hear elements of these songs, even the ones that weren't so popular. You can still hear it later in their music. You can hear it in Malcolm's solo stuff. I've been lucky enough to see, my buddy Jack and I got to go see Pavement a few years ago now in San Diego at the Balboa Theater, and it was amazing, dude. I mean, he still plays the same guitar. He's got the same three. I think he's got like the Stratocaster, that I have, the one that looks like it, that I cannot get to sound like his for the life of me. And he's got the gold top Les Paul, and he's got a Jazzmaster, and I need to get a Jazzmaster. If anybody has $1,200 they want to give me, I'm gonna buy a Jazzmaster. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's why, this is what I want this to kind of be about. Is it's just kind of fun, talk about the emotion of like identifying with music this much, and Pavement is, up until I heard Pavement, the Red Hot Chili Peppers were my favorite band, and I still love the Chili Peppers. I don't care what anybody says. John Frusciante is one of the best guitarists of all time. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Pavement was one of the first times when I really was like, whoa, this is like different from anything I've ever heard. Like, I've never heard anything like this, and I haven't since either. A lot of people say Pavement is one of the most influential bands of all time, most influential indie bands of all time, most influential rock bands of all time. The number of lists that they were included in over the years is nuts. And this album in particular, I think, was included in a crazy amount of best album of this, best album of that, best rock album. They're on all of them from all the different big magazines, Rolling Stone and Spin and all that stuff. But for some kids who started playing in punk bands when they were 16 in Stockton, California, then went to college, then ended up back in Stockton randomly and recorded some shit with an old hippie alcoholic, I think they did pretty good. I mean, to go on and put out a cassette that got reviewed and got 5 stars by Spin magazine before the record even dropped. I mean, incredible stuff. And you really don't hear a lot of stuff like that ends up being so like mired in all this like mythology and stuff, but it's so cool, man. Like, I love, the more I found out about Pavement over the years, it just made me love them even more. Like, how much they stuck to their guns. They never took a major label deal. They've been with Matador. They were with Matador the entire time. And Malcolm still put stuff out with Matador because they were friends. Those guys were like the same age as them when they started Matador. They were like the same age. So they were just friends. They didn't have any money. He said that they had like I think Slanted and Enchanted helped them keep the doors open at Matador. So it was, again, just this weird culmination of all this stuff that happened. And it's such a cool thing to see how all this stuff came together at once and created something so cool and so unique that still has a lasting impact now, So anyway, I think that's just about it. I think I've rambled long enough about Pavement. I'm sure I'll do more. I'll probably talk about a couple of their other albums. But Slanted and Enchanted was the first one that I really fell in love with, and all the EPs and stuff before it and all those songs, and they're still super important to me and have this special place in my heart, and remind me of a certain time in my life. And yeah, I mean, thanks for listening. If you did, if you made it through all my mumbling, and hopefully I enunciated well enough for everyone to understand me. Hopefully it's loud enough that you can hear me. I have recorded this episode about 50 times now. This is like my 80th take. So I think I finally got it down. I finally got this software to work for me. So anyway, if you like it, let me know. That'd be cool. If not, please don't. Just kidding. I don't care. But yeah, hopefully we'll do more of these, and it'll be fun to have some people on. I have some ideas for people. I'm in Springfield, Missouri, in my hometown right now, so hopefully I'll have some cool people from around here, and we'll see where it goes, man. I mean, you know, I think this will be fun for like 5 people to listen to. So we'll see. Yeah, like I said, thanks for listening if you did, and adios.
Picture yourself in a magazine. I can't, so I won't stand up. Chuck, break, look, wait for the darlings and to watch when they grow up. Break down, lose heartbeat. I won't let you break down so hardly. I won't let you break down. Damn the guts. Splitting foundations and you see where they break down. Seriously, I won't let you break what you got to lose, what you got to prove, what you got to lose. Fight generation, fight this 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 generation.